Okay, we're good to go?
No, not just yet, just now, right about now, I think.
Okay, fantastic. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Central Coast Local Planning Panel. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet today, and especially the Darkinjung speaking people of the Central Coast Council area and all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I extend my respect to elders past and present and to all future cultural knowledge holders. As you will have gathered, this meeting is being recorded and webcast, and there is to be no other recording or filming of the meeting. The panel's decisions from the meeting and audio recording should be available on Council's website ordinarily well within 7 days from the meeting. Most people are muted except when they're speaking, but for the panel members who can be unmuted throughout, please pop your electronic devices on silent if you wouldn't mind. Okay, the panel today is me, Donna Rygate, I'm the chair. We have also as expert professional panel members Grant Christmas and Sue Francis, and Mark Elsey is our nominated community panel member. So welcome everybody, and we have no apologies. Today, the following development applications that meet the state government's public meeting criteria are going to be considered. That would be DA 57736/2019, 37 Wards Hill Road, Kilcare Heights, a telecommunications tower proposal, and DA 57957/2020, 396 and 404, the Entrance Road, Erina Heights, a centre-based childcare facility proposal. We'll also consider later on a number of applications that don't meet the criteria, which are the public meeting criteria, which are DA 61991/2021, 23 Anchorage Crescent, Terrigal, alterations and additions proposal, and DA 627/2021, 7 Helen Drive, Copacabana, demolition of existing dwelling and proposed new dwelling. And we will also provide some advice to Council in relation to a planning proposal about a caravan park at Empire Bay. Okay, the panel has been provided with assessment reports prepared by Council staff. Given the current lockdown situation, site orientation has been undertaken electronically to complement the site visits that were undertaken. Council staff have also briefed the panel on the key issues the applications raise. Copies of submissions have been provided to the panel, including those in response to the 4th round notification of previous submitters in relation to the Kilcare Heights matter. We've got a number of people that are registered to speak today. In relation to the telecommunications tower proposal at Kilcare Heights, we have registered Josephine Howie, Rodney Dawson, Michael Allen, Mike Allsop, Tony Denny as members of the public. We did receive a very late application from a member of the public to speak in favour of the application, but it was out of time, so that didn't proceed. We have on behalf of the applicant, Joanna Ward, and available to provide advice, but not necessarily to speak on behalf of the applicant, Semi Sahin and Jeff Piper. In relation to the Erina Heights proposal for the childcare centre, we have Peter Harris registered to speak on behalf of the applicant. Jeff Gray will also be, Gary, sorry, will also be with her, but not necessarily speak. We don't have any members of the public wanting to speak on that one. So, welcome everyone. How does this work? This is the opportunity for the panel to hear from members of the community and applicants, and for the panel to ask questions, if necessary, to clarify its understanding. So we'll hear from the speakers on the first agenda item, and then we'll hear from the applicant's representative on that one, and then we'll hear from the speaker on the second agenda item. As everybody who's registered to speak would know from the registration form, our practice is to allow individual members of the public 3 minutes to speak on a matter. Once all those members of the public have spoken, the applicant's representatives are given a maximum total speaking time of 15 minutes to respond to the issues that have been raised. Each speaker is to be heard in silence, and courtesy and respect are to be observed throughout the meeting. As I said, panel members may ask questions of the speakers to clarify our understanding of what's being said. And panel members might also ask questions of council officers to clarify anything if that's necessary. Okay, onto the agenda. Everybody on the panel knows that we have requirements in the Code of Conduct to make conflict of interest declarations. We've received written declarations, I believe, from everybody on the panel. Does anybody have a declaration of interest that hasn't previously been made? Anything that's come up since you put in your form?
Nothing from me, Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Nothing from me.
Okay. Right. We then are asked the resolution in the papers say we confirm we've cited declaration in relation to each matter and will take any management measures identified. All in favour? Yep.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, the minutes of the panel meeting held on the 22nd of July and an electronic meeting on the 27th of July have been circulated. They've been endorsed by the chairs of those meetings and they're submitted to us for noting. Can I say all in favour of accepting those?
Aye.
Thank you. Right, now onto the agenda, and I will ask our first speaker, who is Josephine Howie, if she would please address the panel in relation to the proposed telecommunications tower at Kilcare Heights.
Thank you, Ms. Rygate. Good afternoon. I am asking that you actually hear what we have to say today, as there has been so much analysis and research into this application over a long period of time. It seems that there is a desire to rubber stamp this application whilst arguing against its suitability. Way back in 2014, 7 years ago, local community groups surveyed residents who were experiencing black spots in their communications. But now the area has NBN, all homes have 5G, and new phones have Wi-Fi calling. Generally now they have no difficulty except at the beach, where the problem is not necessarily a lack of a tower, but that the NBN node is too far away. Why is Council insisting that the tower go ahead in this location when the applicant argues against the suitability of 37 Wards Hill Road? These are their arguments. Firstly, the applicant says that locating the tower further up into Kilcare Heights is not suitable because of the residential amenity of that area. But the 37 Wards Hill Road area is a residential area and is also the main thoroughfare into our unique village. Secondly, Council fought against a 1.8 metre fence being erected on Wards Hill Road not 100 metres away, and yet they are now proposing a 33 metre tower at 37 Wards Hill Road. This is a 288% deviation from their own local regulations and fails the LEP variation test. Thirdly, the applicant states that landscaping will be designed to minimise and screen the tower. However, with a roadway which abuts the front boundary, there will be no room for landscape screening. It is also argued that locating the tower in other locations, such as Hawkhead Drive, would require too many trees to be removed. Yet at 37 Wards Hill Road, 33 trees are to be removed. And of those 33, just 3 are proposed to be replaced in front of the facility, space permitting. But these must be kept trimmed top and bottom to facilitate bushfire regulations. And the New South Wales Rural Fire Service practice notes say that there must be an asset protection zone of at least 10 metres around a telecommunications facility. So there will be no room for landscape screening. In conclusion, this application must be denied because the telecommunication needs of the community have changed. The location is not suitable because of its proximity to a residential area. There will be no room for landscaping screening on the site. Even if there was landscaping space, the bushfire regulations will not allow for screening vegetation, and Council's own LEP argues against a deviation of this magnitude. I hope you can now see that this is not the right location for the tower. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Howie. I'll now call on Rodney Dawson, please, to address the panel.
Thank you, Chair. Can you see me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I've got 4 points. There's a lot of information, but I've limited this to 4 points. The variation request. The request and the analysis of the report is flawed and wrong. The applicant has chosen the first way identified in WEBE to demonstrate that the development standard is unreasonable or unnecessary. No others are identified. This way, the first way, is to show that the objectives of the standard and the zone are otherwise achieved by what is proposed. Yet neither the report nor the request does that. All it is said is that if not varied, the contravention of 288% would make the tower unviable for Optus. That's like saying I must have a 3-storey house to get a view in a zone with a height limit of 2 stories. It does not demonstrate as an outcome anything other than a commercial imperative. There is no reasoning or analysis of how the objectives are otherwise met. None. Further, it's claimed that there are sufficient environmental planning grounds to justify the contravention, yet none are identified, so as to demonstrate the required outcome. Other than these statements, strict compliance would inhibit the proposed development's purpose, and telecommunication facilities must protrude above the surrounding building line and be designed at a height which allows the radio frequency signal to service the area. These are commercial and technical grounds, not environmental planning grounds. Then it's said that the variation would be in the public interest, but this misconstrues the test. Which is a variation can only be in the public interest because it is consistent with the objectives of the development standard and of the zone. No consistency has been demonstrated. Of course, a successful variation is a special kind of jurisdictional fact which must be established before your power to approve is enlivened. The DA must be approved, must be refused. There's a good exposition of this in a more recent case than WEBE called Rebel, MH Neutral Bay and North Sydney. The next 2 points are running together because they're related. I heard you say that you've had access to the submissions, but I didn't see in the council report the residents' photo montages, 5 of them, which have been sent on 3 occasions to the council. All the report does at page 61 is to show one tree, which won't survive, and the tower nicely positioned behind it. These photo montages show what we've always suspected when one reads the bushfire report and the council report. When the APZ is created, there will be no vegetation in front of the structure as depicted in the photo montages. The entire facility will be visible, and the APZ must be maintained in perpetuity. Also, Mrs. Howard said, the replacement trees will need to be cropped to 15% of their mature canopy, which is ineffective in screening, as the council tree officer and architect both concede at pages 48, 61 and 62.
Mr. Dawson, your 3 minutes has expired. Are you almost finished?
I am almost finished.
Excellent.
I don't want to sound like Melvin the Chipmunk. That's all, racing on.
Okay, please.
I want to make sense. What's more disturbing is that the APZ protrudes beyond the boundary into the road reserve. Have a look at figure 19. That's public land and a public road. Not constructed, but it's in the road reserve. This area then becomes land to which the DA relates. Owner's consent is required by the road authority in that capacity. So far as I'm aware, there is none. Any works would need the approval under the Roads Act. And because the APZ is to be maintained in perpetuity, there is no mechanism to place that obligation on public land, such as a road. The last matter I can deal with very quickly, community land or operational land, you need only call for the advertisement placed by the council in March 1998, or just prior to that, when they resolved to classify the land. The terms of the resolution were not reproduced. That's a mandatory requirement of Section 34 of the Local Government Act. That meant the resolution was a nullity. That means it's community land by default. That also means it can't be dealt with until there's a plan of management in accordance with Division 2 of the local government. Thank you for your time. I'm sorry I went over. I'm aged and take my time.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you addressing the panel. Okay, it's now Michael Allen to address the panel, please. Hello, Michael Allen.
Michael, you're on mute.
Sorry, I unmuted that several times. It went back to mute. My name's Michael Allen. My wife and I live at Patricia Place, Kilcare. I've been authorised in writing to speak on behalf of neighbours and fellow residents, Emeritus Professor Chris Fell, AO, and Caroline Haskey, Mike and Dale Corbett, John Westacott and Cecile Burke, Bob Eddington, Mike Allsop in his personal capacity, not as President of WATCA, and Quentin Munro. We submit this application is not principally concerned with the usual planning considerations of land use, bulk, loss of privacy, loss of views, etc. It is primarily concerned with an essential service, which some members of the local community have and others simply do not. With the decommissioning of the copper-based landline phones, replaced by the Frankenstein NBN model of fibre to the node, and I note we're more than twice the distance recommended by NBN to be from that node, the lack of mobile and data service for hundreds of local residents is not simply a matter of inconvenience, and it is certainly that, but potentially a matter of life and death. Most of our neighbours are over the age of 65, with some with existing medical conditions. The majority of our homes in our area are in the flame zone fire risk classification, as you would know, the highest classification for buildings. If the internet fails, and it frequently does here, we are simply unable to call 000. We cannot call fire services, ambulance or police by any means. Internet banking is limited because we can't receive authorisation codes by text. We cannot receive identity confirmation codes required by web-based services such as MyGov. If you run a business from home as I do, it is more than an inconvenience. If the internet goes out or internet speeds drop, as frequently happens, Zoom meetings drop out or freeze, and the usual fallback available to most people of relying on your mobile phone or tablet is simply not available to us. These are serious and detrimental impacts. The height of the proposed tower, its footprint and method of construction are almost entirely dictated by technical parameters, which brook little or no variation if it's to be useful. Its proposed location has been chosen to provide the best available quality of service to the maximum number of residents, currently without mobile and data services. This is not simply a matter of moving the tower somewhere else, reducing its height or footprint, or some other aesthetic band-aid. I will leave you with the 2012 Land and Environment Court case of Telstra Corporation Limited and Clarence Valley Council. In that case, the court was asked to approve the installation of a mobile phone tower. That in circumstances where there were some impacts on views. The court acknowledged this. However, the court weighed these against the higher priority of the essential service that this facility will provide. In the current case, there is no impact on views, and I would suggest the aesthetics of this are fairly subjective. All the more reason to give priority to this being an essential service and the service being installed. Since lodging this DA 2 years ago, the proponent...
Mr. Allen, you've run out of time too. Are you nearly finished?
I've got 2 lines to go.
Okay.
The proponent has varied the plans twice in response to those who objected to its external appearance and location. It's now time this vital infrastructure was approved, and the essential service that so many members of our community are currently deprived of is provided. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'd now like to call on Mike Allsop to speak to the panel.
Yes, thanks panel members, and good afternoon. I'm speaking in my capacity as president of the Wagstaff to Kilcare Community Association, which is the largest community group in this area. This association has been striving for improvements to mobile coverage since about 2015, when we undertook a street-by-street investigation of the problem with our residents, and a whole lot of black spots were identified. With that evidence, we made representations to local members of parliament and to the telco bodies to find a solution. It was urgent. By way of example, we found that text messages used to secure government or banking transactions weren't able to be received at homes. Businesses or people working from home weren't able to use mobile telephone reliably. Tradies were not able to order goods from a work site. And people out and about, if you're walking around, were not able to call 000 in the event of an emergency. So we were pleased to see the proposal develop through its initial assessment of options, and we offered constructive commentary throughout the process. We agree that a tower solution is required to provide signals into shielded hillsides and valleys, which is what we've got here. And that site needs to be accessible and have services available to it. So we've got no issue with the tower structure, and particularly with the low profile antenna proposal that they have. Throughout the comment period of the DA, we expressed some concerns about the visual impact at ground level of the equipment buildings being highly visible from Wards Hill Road, and particularly for those opposite. We did note that there's been progressive refinement of the proposal, moving those structures further away to facilitate some screen planting. We note in the assessment papers that a condition of consent is proposed to provide landscape planting along the western boundary within the site. And we're also pleased to see an explicit statement that the verge planting on the road outside the site is to be retained. We would only insist that Council continue to maintain that verge planting in good order for screening purposes. So in summary, we feel that the proponent and the assessment team have presented the proposal on a fairly strong basis of analysis, taking into account both the social impacts, public interest considerations, as well as the essential technical and environmental planning requirements for improved mobile service. And we do recognise that this DA has provoked strong expressions of support and objection in our community. That being said, the vast majority of representations made to this association on the topic support the improvement in services above all else. And people believe, frankly, that this proposal is their only hope for seeing an improvement. So this association is in favour of the proposal progressing, subject to the conditions stipulated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alsop. Okay, our final member of the community to speak on this proposal is Tony Denny. Can we have Tony Denny, please?
Hello, Tony Denny here. Okay, so look, I would say there's no denying there is a need for a tower. The signal is terrible in the area, that's for sure. But Wards Hill Road is the gateway to the Baldai National Park. And, you know, there is another tower 1 kilometre away from this tower, which is currently in use. Most people don't know it's there because they don't see it, which is exactly the point. This is on a gateway road into an incredibly beautiful area. You will see it as you drive into the national park area. You'll see it as you leave the national park area when you're walking down at Hardy's Bay, as illustrated in the Central Coast Express CGI. You will see the tower there. Now that is an abomination and should not be allowed. I think there is an alternate solution that should be explored. On the back of that, there was the visual impact assessment prepared fails to assess the impact of the tower on any private property. Just disregards all the residents in the area. Then we get to another pretty disturbing point, very disturbing actually. There was only a desktop audit on the potential Indigenous impact of the tower in this area. Now, I can tell you now that there is a report being made by the Indigenous community on this location, which will indicate that this tower will have a significant impact on a very important area for the Indigenous community. That report is pending. And given that that report is pending, I do call on the planning committee to adjourn their decision today. The report should be out in 2 to 4 weeks, and it's my understanding that report will show a significant impact to the Indigenous community. That's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Denny. Now I'd like to ask Joanna Ward on behalf of the applicant whether she'd like to respond to the comments made or indeed provide any information she thinks the planning panel needs to pay particular note to.
Hello, yes. Hi, I'm Joanna. I am going to speak today on behalf of the applicant. I'm speaking in favour of the proposal and support of the recommendations within the Development Assessment Planning Report. I'm here today with Semi Sahin, a coverage expert, and Jeff Piper, who is an Optus site acquisition specialist. Neither party will present, however, both are available to answer questions at the end of this. I'll work to discuss the matters raised from the public today and the other matters raised in submissions and within the assessment planner's report. So I'll first address why this site is required. Both carriers have been seeking a solution in the area for a number of years to address the significant mobile coverage shortcomings. At present, there's a significant mobile coverage deficiency within Kilcare Heights, Hardies Bay, and the surrounding suburbs. In cases of emergency, this can be a potentially life-threatening situation, and this has been raised first-hand experience within a number of submissions received. So the closest existing telecommunication facilities to the subject site are at Ettalong Beach, which is a resort rooftop facility, and McMaster's Beach site, which is a 45-metre lattice tower, both of which are located more than 3 kilometres from this location. These other facilities are already utilised by all 3 carriers, and they cannot be upgraded to resolve the coverage deficit. Investigations have identified that around 1,300 registered addresses will receive improved coverage from this proposed facility. The challenging terrain in the area is further reducing the impact existing sites are having in this area. As you'd be aware, a portion of the subject site and most of the surrounding area is classified as vegetation category 1, which is the highest level of bushfire risk. Given the high bushfire risk within the area, a facility in this location would be important for both day-to-day communication services as well as in an emergency situation. We consider that the involvement of both Optus and Telstra equipment will allow for the provision of coverage in the area for 2 carriers from 1 structure. This is important because it's preventing the proliferation of towers within the area by both carriers being on 1 facility. Now, the next matter to address is the visual impact of the proposal. So the facility will be located on a property which is currently utilised for public infrastructure, specifically a 10.9 metre high above ground water reservoir tank. At ground level, the facility will be screened from Wards Hill Road by existing road verge vegetation. In response to the concern raised that this road verge vegetation will be cleared, which was also raised during the submission periods, we have confirmed with our bushfire consultant that no vegetation within the road verge will need to be cleared. This can be done via reduction on that side of the APZ, which is a risk-based assessment. So that has been confirmed that no road verge vegetation will be removed. The existing road verge vegetation is expected to provide partial screening of the lower portion of the proposed facility from Wards Hill Road at ground level. The section of roadway where the facility will be situated is not provisioned for pedestrian use. There are no footpaths or bikeways. Passing motorists utilising Wards Hill Road and the scenic road will be able to view the top of the facility at greater distances. However, this viewing will be brief based on the topography of the area. At the facility location, the speed limit of Wards Hill Road is 50 kilometres. Drivers are therefore unlikely to stop at any point on Wards Hill Road near the facility, and as a result, these views are expected to be brief of people entering Wards Hill Road and exiting via that Wards Hill Road. The facility will be visible, but it's not expected that viewing the top of the facility would impact the character of the wider area, as utility infrastructure of varying types is already present and would not be considered out of place. The majority of houses along Wards Hill Road are orientated west towards the significant vista of Hardy's Bay, and therefore will not have their view interrupted by the facility. This is also highlighted within the Development Assessment Planners Report, which says that the houses are located from a depressed viewpoint position and mostly facing the perusal of the ocean views, and ultimately with screened or filtered views of the subject site. Where the DA was amended to allow for additional separation from Wards Hill Road. This included changing the compound orientation to allow for better setback of the monopole from the road. This was the monopole itself was further setback from the road, and both carriers have reduced their compound sizes. The space constraint on the subject site and Council's asset management requirements of the site prevented the facility being further setback from Wards Hill Road than where it is currently. We consider that the changes, although not significant, they have had a beneficial impact on the design, and they will reduce the visual impact from the proposal on Wards Hill Road, particularly at ground level. So regarding the variation to the height standard, the facility is generally in accordance with LEP provisions and the New South Wales Telecommunication Facilities Guideline. The variation to the development standard, which sees the site being 24.5 metres higher than the 8.5 metre building height limit, is required in order to achieve the coverage objectives of the proposal. I think the most important consideration of this height provision is what the impact will be. The impact of breaching this height restriction is different depending on the height of the development. For instance, an office building would have a vastly greater visual impact than that of a monopole at the same height. The height of the facility is governed by its surroundings. The undulating topography, mature vegetation has necessitated the 33-metre height. So to address the question, can the height of the facility be reduced? The short answer is no. The height of the facility is the minimum height required to achieve the coverage objectives. The nature of telecommunication facilities requires the radio frequency equipment, which is specifically the antenna, to sit elevated above the surrounding structures. Greater height of RF equipment allows the signal to propagate further and providing a more effective coverage to a greater area for the facility. I'll briefly address site selection and the New South Wales Police Tower, which was considered as a co-location option originally. The police tower is located around 1.2 kilometres from the subject site. It was unfortunately discounted due to it could not infill the current coverage deficit due to its location. The topography and nature of the area did significantly constrain site selection, as very few alternate site locations met the coverage objectives. Other locations that could have met the coverage objectives were specifically low-density residential properties. We, as the applicant, considered it more suitable to locate the facility with existing utility infrastructure, which is the water reservoir, rather than on a property which hosts residential development. In conclusion, we support the recommendations made by the Development Assessment Planner, and we will accept all conditions. With the exception of the height, the proposal is consistent with relevant planning provisions at both a state and local level. As established in the Development Assessment Planners Report, the proposal comprises an essential element of infrastructure. This is no more prevalent than in a time of an emergency, which is supported by both the New South Wales Ambulance, who have stated that the majority of calls to 000 are made from mobile phones, and the New South Wales Rural Fire Service, who have stated that poor mobile phone coverage in high bushfire risk areas can put people's lives at risk. We, as the applicant, have endeavoured to locate the facility in the best location as practical without compromising the performance of the facility. This location is the best to address all competing inputs, including coverage, visual impact, access, topography, tenure, and connection to services. It is considered that the establishment of the facility will not impact the character of the environmental living zone. With this respect, we request the local planning panel uphold the recommendations within the Development Assessment Planners Report. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now members of the panel, do you have any questions for any of our speakers or indeed council officers? in response
Yes,
to
I
what you've
do,
heard?
Chair.
Okay.
Thank you. A couple of questions, and probably best responded to by staff, and I don't know who is the right staff member, but I wanted clarity on the point raised by Mr. Dawson in relation to the community land issue. Just wanted some clarity from council on that matter about the resolution.
Hello, this is Susanna, assessment planner. I was wondering if maybe Martin could answer that.
Absolutely.
Martin Ball, our legal counsel.
Yes, good afternoon, panel. As I understood Mr. Dawson's presentation on this point, he was suggesting that in his view, the council resolution from 1998 to classify the subject site as operational land was invalid. I think for the purposes of determining this development application, the applicant must proceed on the basis that the resolution was valid unless and until declared invalid by a court. That has not occurred. In my respectful view, the grounds on which Mr. Dawson indicated that resolution was, in his opinion, invalid would not suffice to result in a declaration as to its invalidity. And in any event, in my view, the question of whether this site is classified as operational or community under the Local Government Act is not relevant to determining the development application. It may well be relevant to determining whether the council can or cannot grant any interests in the land by way of a lease or license, for example. But in terms of determining the development application, I don't see it as having any direct relevance.
Can I just follow up on that? So you're suggesting that, assuming that it were community land and that there is no plan of management, as would need to be if it were community land, that the development application could be determined regardless of the lack of a plan of management, in your view?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And one other question was in relation to, and it's probably to the assessment officer, in relation to the concerns from about the Metropolitan Land, the Land Council. Has the local Land Council been notified in relation to this application, and have they made comment?
The applicant, from when they first lodged their submission, the DA, they did prepare and submitted a search of Aboriginal Heritage Information Management System certificate, which confirms that there is no archaeological in the vicinity or located on the site itself. So no, we haven't. That was enough to, comply with the unexpected finding protocols.
Right. So you haven't.
Yes.
There isn't a local body that you would normally refer such applications to?
Not at this stage. That would be included, I believe, in the certificate if it needed to go anywhere. But that would be part of this the certification, I guess, or the original preliminary assessment from the Aboriginal.
So what you've done as an assessment is you've taken the certification from the applicant, and who undertook that review? Who issued that certification?
Yes, the applicant has to apply and do a search through the I think it's the environmental department.
Looking at the assessment report, it says that there was a search of the AHIMS database.
That's correct. That's
which indicates there are no items of Aboriginal archaeological heritage known to be located in.
That's correct.
Well,
that's the general process.
You've also got a condition of consent that deals with the if anything was found, what would be
That is
have to be
correct.
done.
That's a general protocol. Yes, it is. In Schedule 1 of the conditions of consent, there is findings protocols in case there was something. They have to immediately advise and put in a management plan. Yes.
Okay,
But
thank you very much.
We've received no submissions in relation to from the local Aboriginal Land Council or anything of that
I
sort.
don't think
No,
they
we
were
haven't.
notified
No.
is the point. That was my question. I don't know that they were notified.
That's right. I was just confirming that. So
Yes.
Yeah, correct. Yes, the notification was really based on the 200 metre electromagnetic report radius.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Good to know. Thank you.
Okay. No, that's enough questions for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Grant, have you got anything?
No, nothing from me, Donna. Thank you.
Okay. Mark?
Nothing from me. Thank you, Donna.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, for speaking on that matter. We'll now turn to the speaker in relation to the childcare centre proposal at Erina Heights. And I'd like to ask Peter Harris, please, to speak to the panel.
Hi, good afternoon. Hello.
Hi.
Good afternoon, and thank you to the panel for the opportunity to speak on the application on behalf of our client and property owner. My name is Peter and I'm a senior environmental planner at Perception Planning. I've prepared a brief background on the proposal, which I hope helps summarise the application and the assessment process. The subject site contains an existing residence and former boarding kennels proposed to be demolished as a result of the proposal. The development utilises 2 lots, 396 and 404 the entrance road. The lots will be consolidated as a result of the development, and I believe that's a condition of consent also. The proposal is for a 120-place childcare centre requiring 25 staff. The centre includes indoor and outdoor play spaces, as well as age range activity rooms, children's and staff bathrooms, a kitchen for the preparation of meals and snacks, as well as ancillary storage, offices and meeting rooms. The development is spread over 2 stories in order to make the most of the topography of the site as it slopes towards the south. The development is accompanied by on-site car park, providing parking for up to 45 vehicles. The development will utilise the existing entry point from the entrance road. Proposed indoor and outdoor play areas and activity rooms are compliant with and exceed the required areas outlined in the childcare planning guidelines under the State Environmental Planning Policy, Educational Establishments and Childcare Facilities of 2017. The slope of the site, existing boundary fence, existing and proposed landscaping will contribute to the low visibility of the development and ensure privacy of the play areas and centre from adjoining public areas. The site itself has good connectivity as a result of the location on the entrance road, with access facilitated for personal vehicles as well as pedestrians. The site is serviced by public transport and has an existing pedestrian crossing located at the front. The property is within a mixed-use development area, adjoined by low-density residential dwellings and an art gallery. A landscape supply centre is located across the road. An acoustic assessment determined that potential noise impacts on adjoining residences, as well as from highway traffic onto the centre, was able to be managed to an acceptable level. The development application was lodged in February 2020, and we have been working with Council cooperatively and collaboratively during the assessment time to revise the proposed development plans, responding to Council's initial concerns with regard to the southerly aspect of the play area and verandas as originally proposed. The site slopes significantly, as you'll be aware, so it's really important to work within the constraints of the site to achieve a practical and functional layout for the centre and car parking areas. We'd like to thank Robert and the previous assessing officer for their inputs and communications as the application was assessed and revised, and then with the current recommendation for approval. Key changes through the assessment process made to the layout reflect an improved solar aspect for the outdoor veranda and play areas, which are now located to the north of the proposed building. The update has resulted in revised car parking design also, but retention of a compliant number of car parking spaces and access. Through this process, a number of additional supporting studies were requested, in addition to those provided within the application. And we have worked with the relevant experts where required to demonstrate that the proposal is consistent with local and state planning controls, planning for bushfire protection, the Biodiversity Conservation Act 2016, and the Education and Childcare SEP of 2017. Our application has demonstrated that it will not have significant adverse impact on the environment or amenity of the area. The development will require some removal of vegetation for the purposes of constructing the centre, car park, wastewater management system, as well as establishing the asset protection zone. A biodiversity assessment report has been prepared for these vegetation impacts and identifies the 2 scrub turpentine, an endangered tree species present within the APZ, will be retained and protected within the development site. The development will include the planting of appropriate native species within the front setback and car park areas in order to contribute to the replacement of vegetation to be removed. It is acknowledged that the scenic character and streetscape amenity is an important element within this location. We believe the setback of the centre, slope topography of the site, and the retention of the 1.8 metre boundary fence in addition to the landscaping fronting the entrance road will result in low visibility of the development and ameliorate any potential visual impact to the entrance road and the public domain. The development type responds to the transitionary residential nature of the area and proximity to the neighbourhood supermarket and Central Coast Grammar School, approximately 450 metres to the west along the entrance road. We request the panel uphold the decision of the Development Assessment Report, recommending the proposal for approval. Thank you again for your time this afternoon in determining this application.
Thank you very much. Okay, does anybody have any questions for Ms. Harris or indeed for Jeff Gary, who is the applicant's traffic engineer, who's also available if required? Members of the panel.
Chair, just I just want to ask Ms. Harris, there was no, I don't think she made any submissions about any of the conditions. Are you otherwise happy with the conditions recommended by the council officers?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mark or Sue? No, Mark's shaking his head. Can't see you, Sue.
Nothing.
Sue?
No, thank you. I'm fine.
Okay, terrific. Okay, well, having heard from everybody who's been registered to speak this afternoon, what we will do now is to adjourn the public part of the meeting to move into our deliberative meeting. If we were doing this in person, we might then reconvene to hand down our decisions, but given that we're doing it electronically, what we'll do instead is seek to have the panel's decisions up on Council's website as soon as possible. In terms of the potential outcomes, we could make a decision on the various matters today, or if more information is required, we might defer a decision either for a further public meeting or to deal with electronically. Okay, so I will now formally close this public part of the meeting of the Central Coast Local Planning Panel. I would like to very much thank all those who attended and took part. I'd like to thank my fellow panel members, the members of the community, representatives of the applicants, and the council staff. Can I ask the panel to click into the Zoom link for the deliberative meeting in 5 minutes' time? I'll give you 5 minutes to go and grab a cup of tea. Okay, thank you, everybody.